Welcome to the New Lead Order podcast. I'm Majorie Bostwick Phoenix. I'm a leadership evolution architect for corporate and entrepreneurial women in that threshold moment of their life. These are women who are ready to break the rules and lead, live, and love outside of the box. In this space, we explore through conversation with powerhouse women how they are paving the way into this new world order that is upon us. This is the New Lead Order. Hi, everyone. It's Marjorie, and welcome back to the New Lead Order podcast. Today's conversation, I'm sitting down with Margaret Williams. Margaret is a leader with a background in civilian military work and with a deep understanding of what it means to navigate power systems that were never designed with you in mind. In this episode, we name something that so many Black women and marginalized leaders live with every day: the way brilliance gets trapped inside resilience, inside overfunctioning, overperforming, and being expected to carry what the system won't hold. If you've been asking yourself how to lead with freedom inside the very systems that constrain you, this conversation will meet you right where you are. Enjoy the episode. Welcome, Margaret, to the New Lead Order podcast.
Thank you so much, Marjorie. I'm very glad to be here with you today. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Of course. You and I, we connected on Substack. We went live about, a month or so ago. And that conversation just really stayed with me. And I know that I wanted to bring you on the show once I relaunched it because, what I appreciate about how you show up on Substack is that you show up like a real leader, right? You see the gifts that other people are bringing to the world. So you're really engaging with folks on that platform and you create a space to elevate them by inviting them on and saying, hey, let's have a conversation. And to me, that's what true leadership is. It's the ability to recognize what's in the people around you and to help bring that forward. So I really appreciate that. And then I think I told you the other day that you and I both have a background in IO psychology. So the way we look at leadership, it really sits at this intersection of society and human behavior and the systems that we're working in. So we are always asking not just how someone leads, but how culture and power and identity really shape leadership. So there's so much that I want to talk about today, but I know that we have a limited amount of time. So Margaret, before we dive in, I just want to ground this conversation in something that, I think about a lot in my own work. So through my, I'm doing a visiting fellowship program, and my focus is on Black women in leadership, right? And I see how often our brilliance gets trapped in survival mode, right? Black women especially are navigating these spaces that were never designed with them in mind, right? And systems where competence is expected and our authority is constantly tested, right? And you know this as a woman who's been in the military for many years, right? You know that experience.
Yes.
And survival is not leadership. It's not. We can't look at that resiliency as leadership. So you talk about helping marginalized leaders to stop surviving in power systems and to start leading with freedom and authority. And that feels, deeply aligned with what I see and what I'm committed to shifting. Right. So so explain to us how does a leader recognize when they're still in survival mode, even when it looks like they got it all going on the outside? How do we recognize when we are still moving from survival?
We can tell by our body, by our nervous system. Okay. We sense that something is wrong. We know that there's something wrong, but it takes courage to determine, how am I going to get myself out of this hole that I've gotten myself in? Because we were set up from birth to fail. Okay. And we have been going along with these systems and all these behaviors and everything to survive. That's how we have survived all this time. But all of these things we internalize, they come out in other ways. Our communication, our relationships, you know, and when we least expect. So we cannot continue to try to live up to these expectations, okay? Because we cannot humanly, mentally, emotionally, psychologically take do all of that. We cannot.
Mhm.
And as we start to get older, we start to realize, and then we start to recognize these negative behaviors as a result of all of these things that has happened to us.
Mhm.
Okay?
Mhm.
It's just like a rock. If you keep pouring water on that rock, it's going to crack, or
Mhm.
any foundation. And we're the same way. So we cannot continue to ignore the signals or the warning signs.
I agree. I agree. And I think that this whole idea around survival, I think that it's also we look at it, we label it as resiliency, right? We label it as, we're strong, we're resilient and keep pushing through. But you're right, it's a part of a conditioning that we've been taught from little children. Like this, it's almost like when Black parents have to tell their sons about, okay, now when you drive, if you get pulled over, do this, right? It's This is how you will survive in this system. And so ingrained within us to do that, especially when we walk into certain spaces where there aren't a lot of us. Okay, how am I going to be able to survive this?
We recognize that we have to dim our light in order to fit in these organizations, in these communities. Okay. Otherwise, you are considered an outcast. You're considered different. People don't
Mm-hmm.
like that. People are looking for the status quo.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Within the status
Mm-hmm.
quo, you conform to that. All along, you are miserable in this box that you have been put in. They say, okay, yeah, we'll accept you, but under these circumstances.
That's right. But
Okay.
you can't even show up as your own self.
No, no, you can't. You have to dim your light and you have to be quiet, because once you speak the truth, then you
Mhm.
become ostracized.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
you become a problem.
Yeah. 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 And I think you and I both are seeing that we are definitely in a time now where we're saying like enough of that. Enough of that. We're not falling into that trap. We're not living by those rules. We're gonna have to disrupt this system or dismantle it or something, right?
Leave or
And
leave.
exactly, exactly. And figuring out what that is. That's one of the things that I really, for me, as part of this fellowship, that I really want to dig into and talk about, because what I start to see is we come together and we start creating little silos. Okay, let's work in each other's resumes, and so we can plug back into that same system. Let's go over here and start doing this so we can still be a part of this group. Like we're sort of still conditioned to how can we still get back in there, but really we don't know what else to do. What else
You
is
know,
there to do?
You know why? Because we haven't given ourselves the space and time to figure out what that is because we are too busy caught up in the rat race.
Mm. Hmm.
How do you have time to reflect? How do you have time to sit still and be calm and figure out what your next steps are? Because you're too busy trying to put out the next fire.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. I
And
there's a
that
lot to say about that. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, and that keeps us in survival mode and scarcity mindset.
Hmm. Hmm. Yes. Yes. Yeah, most definitely. There's a lot to say about that, about us not um finding the time and the space or creating the time and the space to sit to see what comes next. I talk about this. How do we sense what's emerging? We can't sense what's emerging if we don't listen and listen to ourselves, right? Listen to nature, listen to other people. Like, so there's a lot to do. And because the survival mode has us constantly, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? It keeps us away from that. You're
Right.
absolutely right.
And so what we end up doing is we're just treading water. We can't stop
Mm,
treading water because then we'll drown. We're almost up to here. That's why we're treading water. Okay. So what can we do instead? You have limited time. Maybe while you're sitting in the bathroom, you can meditate. I'm just saying, we have to find ways to improve ourselves. Okay.
yeah, 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 most definitely. Yeah.
If you're out walking the dog, maybe you can be listening to an audio book or something. We have to
Yeah.
find ways,
Yeah.
okay? We can find ways to do what we want when we want to.
Yes.
So the same should go for our personal development,
Yes,
right?
yes, that's right. That's right. And not just go into let's make a way, let's find a way, right? I feel like it's a difference, right? That make a way is sort of like you're pushing through. But let's find a way. Let's sit and discover and find a way. And I want to move to something that you said the other day that I was listening to on your podcast. And there's this distinction between surviving and leading. This brings me to something that I thought about this when you said you're not here to be useful, you're here to be consequential. And so many women, especially Black women, have been conditioned to be useful, to carry something, to fix something, to hold something together. What does this mean to move from being useful to being consequential?
Well, as we leave these toxic organizations, okay, and say, for example, you decide to become a entrepreneur. Okay, what does that mean? Okay, we go back to our vision, our mission, our purpose. All of these things are defined by other people when we go to work for these organizations. When we work for ourselves, we create what we want to bring into the world. Okay, and then we can modify this along the way. But when you're working for somebody else, you have to dance to their music. You have to follow their rules and regulations if you want to continue to work for that company.
Mm-hmm,
Okay,
mm-hmm,
when I recognized that my values were no longer in alignment with the organization that I work with for, it was time for me to leave. There was
mm-hmm,
no
mm-hmm.
more time for me to continue to stay small while they continue to dump additional work on me, continue to disrespect me, continue to undervalue me and ignore me, and to the extent that I can't break through the glass ceiling if I wanted to, because they have all the power, they have all of the control.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think when we realize that um it can feel a bit stifling to be in that kind of surroundings and not know what is it that can help sort of, and I hate to use this terminology with a leash, but it sort of feels like a leash.
It is.
How do
Call it
you,
what it is. Call
yeah,
it what it is.
yeah.
Uh, I had a leash on when I was growing up. Okay. Then society, does the same thing. You have to conform to these rules, these regulations, if you want to succeed in life. After you've still done all that, they still limit your access. They still limit your ability to all the things that other people are privy to, like higher education. You know, I didn't get the proper education when I was, K to 12. So how is that setting me up for success? With these educational systems, then they get us through, healthcare systems, everything possible. They find a way to limit our access to things that are equally offered to all other people with a privilege who don't
Mm,
really need it because they come with a
mhm.
spoon, silver
That's right.
spoon in their mouth, right?
That's right.
They're
That's
giving
right.
all they're giving all of the privileges where
Yes.
we have to figure out, we have to take the crumbs that fall from the table because
That's
they
right.
said this is all you deserve. Well, those
Hmm.
days is over. I don't deserve
That's right.
that.
That's
Based on
right.
whose
That's right.
based on whose ideology, on who says. Okay?
Right. 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 Yeah.
You
No,
talk to
you're right.
me, you talk to me about the Declaration of Independence. I was looking at Marianne Williamson talking about that the Declaration of Independence were formed by these founding members, whatever. They were also slave owners. So you playing both sides, okay? On one side, you're a slave owner, and on the other side, you're like, oh, I'm gonna give you freedom. They didn't sign that because they wanted to. They didn't have a choice. Okay? Let's call it like it is. Don't get me
Is
started.
what it is. You can't listen, you cannot get around it. This is so funny because I was working with a high school student and we were looking at George Washington's farewell speech. And we broke this speech down. And I thought to myself, I said, this man, he's talking sense here because if he's alive today to see what's happening, everything that he wrote in this speech, we're going against it. But remember who these men were, right? Remember who they were referring to when they said my fraternal brother or whatever.
Wasn't
You
talking
know,
about us. George Washington was a slave owner too. And my understanding that he had some kids by black women.
there
Okay?
you go.
So you talk one way, and the other side, you talking out your ass. I'm sorry.
Yes, yes.
So who you trying to impress? Who you trying to it's all a facade. Okay?
Yes, yes, yeah. The
So
hypocrisy.
yes, thank you. So they find, okay, they said we're gonna set the slaves free, but we're gonna enslave them in other ways. We're gonna
Mm,
enslave them economically. We're gonna enslave them financially. We're gonna enslave them, spiritually. Okay? So they get you one way or the other.
or the other.
And
Absolutely.
right? And then a lot of people are just naive and don't realize it. Oh, they said, you know, equal rights for all. They didn't even consider us a human being. So they wasn't talking about us, right? They sold us for, I don't know what they sold us for. We were sold out by our own people. I'm sorry. It's just, it is what it is. Okay. So you have to be careful.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey guys, this is Marjorie. Sorry to interrupt, but I have a quick question for you. Have you ever watched yourself do the thing you said you wouldn't do over and over and over again? I have. And for a long time, I couldn't figure out why. Because I wasn't stuck from a lack of awareness. I was stuck in a loop I hadn't fully named yet. And this is something that I kept hearing from women that I worked with. These are capable, driven, self-aware women, and yet they were still circling the same pattern, standing in that in-between space, wondering why nothing was shifting for good. What I learned and what changed everything is that what moves us across the threshold isn't more motivation, it's precision. Knowing exactly where you are, understanding where the pattern came from, and having a clear plan for what comes next. And that's why I created the emergence map. It's a working diagnostic that helps you see the loop, name it, and replace it with a 90-day customized plan built specifically around your pattern. So if you're ready to stop circling and to stop negotiating with your future, I want you to visit my link tree at linktree/mphoenix and click on the emergence map, and you can find a direct link in the show notes below. Now back to the episode.
There's so many layers to this, and the depth of
is.
it.
Yes.
And this is why when we talk about this and people's like, oh, you all still talking about, slavery. Listen, it's entrenched in every bill, policy, everything. It's entrenched in the system, right? It's actually in the bloodline. But so what we're looking at here right now is a hemorrhage. We're looking at a hemorrhage happening in this country, right? And and there are some of us who are being clotted out in a way. And this is why we see this. This is why we're feeling this, right? So
Yes.
and I wanted to ask you this because as someone who has been in the military, you've been under that hierarchical system. And I want to know, first of all, what being in the military has taught you about leadership and authority, and and how people can sort of evolve from being under authority that is very much hierarchical and patriarchal and stifling in a way.
Okay. Growing up in an abusive household, okay, it made me tough. Okay. I realized when I was going to work for the government that what it was. Okay. So you have to choose. I chose, growing up in Detroit, I could go get a job at the auto factory. Okay, a lot of people did. A lot of people made a lot of money until they automated that thing. And when a lot of people started losing their jobs because a lot of people bought houses and Cadillacs and all of these things, and then they lost their jobs and they came in and brought in the computers. People had to learn new skills and find new jobs. Okay, we see that through all these different cycles, all these different you know, in society. And then you started seeing the privatization of all of these things where they wanted to bust the union, get rid of the union. Then they can right to work. You've seen that started coming out, and where they started to like, okay, we're gonna take your rights here, but we're gonna pay you a little bit more money. Okay. Yeah, yeah, okay, fine. But when I go there and sever my arm or whatever, then what do I have afterwards? Because I can no longer work. So the money that you was paying me is irrelevant because I'm no longer entitled to it. So they find a way to water things down to continue to move people's rights out, exclude people's rights. And they think, oh, well, I just pay you an extra $25 an hour and that should be sufficient. No, it's not. That's why I wanted to go work for the federal government, knowing, okay, I know this, the devil I know versus the one I don't. Okay. I said, I'm going to go work for the federal government because that's one of the largest employers in the world. So if I decide that this location is not working for me, I can go anywhere in the world and work. So that gave me flexibility. But by no means did I not know what I signed up for. Okay. I just had to figure out which devil I was going to work for. And I chose the federal government. And I chose good. If I had it all to do over again, I would, because that gave me a lot of influence and power. Okay, just to say that I work for the government, the Corps of Engineers, and people know what the Corps of Engineers do. That gave me a lot of power, gave me leverage. Okay, so it was beneficial to me until it wasn't. Okay, so sometimes we have to work for the devil. Okay,
That's true. That's true. And
you
it's
do what
in
you have
those
to do.
spaces that you end up really learning this game, so to speak, that
It's a
they're
game.
playing.
It is a
Yes.
game. And I know it's
Mhm.
not for my benefit, okay? Because when they hired me, they looked at me like, oh yeah, we can hire her because she's black and she's female. So she fills two quotas for us. So they didn't have to hire no more black people, okay? They didn't want too many of us in there anyway, because they figured we too many of us in there would cause dissension. So I'm okay with being what they call you. I forgot what they
A
call you.
token?
Huh? Yeah,
The
I was a
token.
token. I'll be your token. You paying me? Why not? Okay, I'll be that token. All right, all the way to the bank. Okay, there it is. So I felt like that was a a a, a key opportunity for me to take that job. Okay, that
Right.
gave me a chance to go further than a lot of people in my own family. Okay,
Right. Right.
so
Yeah.
uh, it was not about them. It was about me getting as much as I could and doing what I'm an overachiever because, suffering from people pleasing and perfectionism. Okay. So being a high achiever, when somebody tells you, when you're a kid that you're never going to be nothing. Okay. I had to prove them wrong. I had to prove my father wrong. Okay. And I did that. And I
Mm.
promised myself that I would not be like him. I would be the opposite of him. He was a narcissist, okay,
Mm.
and he treated everybody like shit. And I said I'm going to be different. That's why I went to work for the military because it's about discipline, it's about trust, loyalty, selfless service, everything that I hold dear. And that's why I went to work for the government too, is because our values are in alignment until it wasn't. Such is life.
Until it wasn't. Until it
Yeah,
wasn't. That's right.
such is life. Just like they say you get married, okay? They say till death do you part, but who's to say it's going to be that long? Sometimes people grow apart,
That's
okay?
it.
So you take it for what it's worth. You get what you can from it, and then you move on. You know what I'm saying? Uh, it is what it is. It's not a
Yep.
marriage. That wasn't a marriage. It was a partnership.
The ship. Yeah.
Yeah, when I said I'll take this job, sir, and I'll make it a career, and I
Hmm.
did just that. I made it a career. Okay, and I have no
Yeah.
regrets about it, regardless of the adversities and challenges that I faced, because that made me a stronger person today. I could not. I could not handle the things that I'm dealing with today if I hadn't went through the fire. Okay. We have to be willing to go through the fire. Okay. And you come out on the other side stronger, wiser, resilient. Okay.
Mhm.
And can nobody touch you?
You know what? It's funny you're saying that because I think that when we go into these jobs, if we can have this sort of lens to say, this is what it is for what I need. Don't make it your life, right? Because you're almost going into the lion's den, right? And so, and understanding that. So you went in with your eyes wide open, knowing what it was that you were moving into. Let me take from this what I can. This is not going to be my life because there's something, and see, and then what happens is when you, for some reason, you're not needed anymore, right? You're laid off, you're fired, you're whatever, then you're not out here like in the wilderness trying to figure out what do I do now? Because you came in as a whole person with this vision for your life that was bigger from this one place. So, I would say that right now for those, especially for those Black women who have been let go out of their jobs, and they're still trying to find a way, that going back to something you said earlier around really taking the time to sit to listen to see what is next for you, right? For your life. So you definitely want to do that. And then for those of us that are still in that space, we're in that system, we're plugged in and going in every day. What can you take from this that is for you, and leave the rest, right? And then be able to move on with your life. So as we close, I want you to give some words of wisdom, based on the work that you have been doing with marginalized leaders, the work that you've done in your life, and what you're doing now on Substack with having these conversations. And I know things are still evolving. You've got a podcast coming out. Like, what words of wisdom would you give leaders now for this time that we're in?
Listen to your heart, okay? Follow, follow that, okay? What are you passionate about? Okay, do that, because we only have one life, you know. And today I am happy with the choices that I have made since I retired. Okay, we're gonna have ups and downs. We're gonna have trials and errors. But what is one step you can take today to move the trajectory of your life in a positive way? One step can make a world of difference. I'm here today, okay? And we don't have to have all the answers, okay? Just listen, and just listen to your intuition, and to your body, and it will tell you what to do. You just have to trust, okay? Just trust. We have to
Mhm.
start somewhere, okay?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
I've made so many mistakes, but I've learned so valuable lessons along the way that has helped me, and met so many wonderful people along the way, good and bad. And all of those things have made me the person I am today. And I am grateful. I am grateful.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I see the way that, like I said, the way that you're showing up as a leader, you're showing up and saying, hey, let's talk, let me listen to different frameworks, different points of views, different perspectives. What are you doing? How are you doing it? Bringing people together. And all of that is, it's exploring, but you have the sense of curiosity about people, and that is what makes a good leader and the leaders we need now. So I want to thank you so much, Margaret, for coming on the New Lead podcast today. I want you guys listening to follow Margaret Williams on Substack as the empowered leader, right? That's one of your handles there.
Yes,
Empowered leader.
I professional coach at Substack, yeah, .com.
and
Yes,
and
thank you
on
so much.
LinkedIn as well.
Yes, I am. I am.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm going to be sharing all of that information in the show notes for you, so you'll be able to find her there. So until next time, thank you for joining us for another episode of the New Lead Order. We'll see you again soon.